It's time for some med school interview tips. All right, hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, well, welcome. I am a dermatology resident. This channel is for anyone who is thinking about or currently training in medicine. I give advice based on my own life experiences, and today we'll be chatting about med school interview tips. I know it can be found all on the web, but I wanted to give you guys some of my favorite tips that I think helps me succeed and I think will definitely help you succeed. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the interview season for medical school. I want you guys to give yourself positive affirmations throughout the season. Just remind yourself you only need one med school acceptance to become a physician. That even if you are declined, if you do not get any interviews this season, that you're still very worthy. It's still possible for you to become a physician. It just wasn't your time this time. All right, now that we've done a little bit of positive affirmations, and before you guys are like, oh, she doesn't know what it's like, I just want to remind you guys that I applied to med school twice. Make sure that you check out my video on that. But yeah, so this is, it's not a race to get to med school. Everybody's going to have their own journey. I know this season can get stressful. All right. So now for interviews, my very first tip is the obvious, to prepare for interviews. But not only are you going to be preparing for the common questions, such as tell me about yourself, why medicine, which are actually hard questions to answer when you really think about it, but you also want to prepare for those really challenging questions, those weird questions such as like, if you were a superhero, tell me which one and why. If you were a cookie, what kind of cookie would you be and why? Those questions are really hard. And of course, you want to prepare for those questions where they might ask you about public health policies, politics, and how it may play into medicine. You want to prepare for all of those questions, okay? Don't try to prepare for only your favorite questions. You never know what questions are going to be thrown at you on the day of interview. So you want to rehearse by yourself, you want to rehearse with family and friends, and you want to rehearse with someone in the medical field, such as a med student, a med school mentor, anyone along the lines of that. Personally, for me, I interviewed with my mom. I had a mentor who was a med student. Those are the main people that I interviewed with. And of course, I practice by myself in the mirror as well. I think it's also great now that it's virtual, so you can also film yourself answering these questions, because now that it's virtual, you want to see the way that you look on when you're answering these questions. And of course, when you're answering the questions, make sure that you are brief and to the point. You don't want to be talking for a really long time to get the same point across that you could have gotten done in a shorter amount of time. The interview is really to get to know you a lot better. So you want the interviewer to get to the questions that they want to ask you to get to know you more. And you also don't want to bore the interviewer as well, where they're just like, oh, that person was painful. So yeah, the second one also goes into preparation, is making sure that you're paying attention to body language. So this is a really great opportunity to use your phone and your mirror as well to see how you're answering questions, the way your body movements look. You want to look relaxed. You want to look confident, because you also your body language also is going to help make the interviewer feel comfortable to speak with you. You also want to have appropriate expressions such as laughing when something is funny, smiling. All of those things help make the interviewer feel comfortable and help make the interviewer feel like, hey, I want this person at my school. They're really easy to talk to. They're really friendly. They're very personable. Remember, as a physician, most of us are going to be working with patients. You want to be making your patients feel comfortable as well. So this is just the first step to, learning how to do that. The third tip, which is funny because the third tip is actually ensure that you're not sounding rehearsed. So obviously, yes, you are practicing these questions. You're practicing how to answer them. You're practicing how your body language looks. You're practicing, but you don't want to sound rehearsed. You want to go through these questions and make sure you know how you want to answer them, but you want to make it sound fluid. You want to make it sound conversational. You don't want to sound like, you are reciting for a rehearsal. So make sure that this is more of a conversation. How you're answering questions is more conversational. When you're practicing, pay attention to the background. Great lighting is very important. You don't want your background to have anything super distracting. You want to make sure that during your practice times, you're also noticing, you know, how your camera lighting looks during certain times of the day, because you don't want to look dark on the screen. So definitely while practicing, make sure you're paying attention to how things are going to come across virtually. Your background is very key. I was assisting the last year in the interview process for my residency program, and I did realize that interesting backgrounds was a conversation starter sometimes, because I would be like, oh my God, I love this in your background. Now, even though I did think that those were sometimes great conversation starters, they were still simple backgrounds. Do not have a busy, distracting background. Keep it simple, and the safest way to go is just a bland wall and you. No need to get crazy. My next tip is know your application. I remember I had done so many things, especially as a non-traditional pre-med. You know, it was pretty much 7 years of a lot of things that I did. And what I had included in my application, I had to remember and think about all the things that I did. So before each interview, I'd read through my application so that if they picked out anything for my application, I knew how to answer. I can't be like, oh, I forgot what I did on that research project. No, it doesn't matter that I did it in like my second year of undergrad. I still need to know what I did. So make sure that you're reviewing your application. On the day of the interview, make sure that you are dressed appropriate from the top to bottom. I know that it's mostly virtual, and your top is probably the top is the most important, but once again, you just like never know what could happen. God forbid, like your camera falls, or I don't know what. You want to be dressed appropriately from the top to bottom. I don't know if you guys saw that clip of the news reporter. This is when COVID like first started back in, what year was that? 2020. And he had a nice shirt on, but then he just had like briefs or something like that, and the camera saw it. So like, you just never want to be put in that awkward position. Dress appropriately from top to bottom. Another tip is, if asked a question that is controversial, take a firm stance on it. That's the whole point of that question, to see that if you can stand firm in a decision. As a physician, you'll have to stand firm in a decision. Even you don't want to be like wavering. You want to be confident in what you're doing as a physician. So I think that's why that question is really important, and what interviewers are trying to get from that. It's tough because you never want to say the wrong answer to controversial questions, but whatever you say, just stand firm in that. Send a thank you note. It looks good for you if you do send a thank you note after your interview. I send thank you notes to all of mine for med school as well as for residency. And I think it's a little nice little touch. It's respectful, and sometimes it helps them remember you a little bit more. I don't think that it actually changes anything in their decision of you, but I think it's like a really nice gesture. So those are my tips for med school interviews. I also have another video where I talked about derm residency interviews, and I think there's a lot of overlap there, so I'm not going to really repeat myself 100%, and especially from what I said there. But if you want a little bit more details, you could check that video out as well. If you thought this video was helpful, make sure to press that like button and let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, let me know. It's always great to chat with y'all, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.